What's up guys, today I'll be talking about the guns I will be taking into Forsaken. Right now you see a lot of people on Twitter and YouTube talking about what guns they're going to be taking into Forsaken and saying you need 3 of these, you need 3 of that, and all those things. But I'm going to try to break it down in the most logical way and start piecing the puzzle together of what you actually need and of what element. That way you guys have a guide and kind of like a place to start for what you're going to do and take into Forsaken. So let's get right into it. So I think it's pretty important to start with the power weapon slot in this video, because everything else kind of trickles down from there. So starting here, obviously Whisper the Worm, you will want one of these. Obviously it's exotic, you can't change the element, so 1 is all you need. If you want 3 for each character, then you can do that, but I use dim and things like that, so I don't really care for having 1 per character. Next we have the Curtain Call, and this will be the first weapon. I will say getting 3 is probably very ideal, because for things like heroic strikes and nightfalls with burns, obviously 1 week is void burn, next week is arc burn, next week is solar burn. You're going to be wanting 1 of each burn, and obviously going into Forsaken you will not be able to change the elemental burn like this. This will be gone, so whatever you have it on will be locked the day the 28th of August hits and the new weapon slot changes come around. And the reason why I say you want 3 curtain calls is because it is the best rocket launcher in the game for damage per second and doing damage to bosses. The main reason is because of cluster bombs and also the RPM, which this is a lie, but the Curtain Call is the fastest shooting rocket launcher out of all the cluster bomb rockets in the game. So basically it's kind of a god roll in a way, but in Forsaken there could be a rocket launcher that can roll cluster bomb, then also another perk next to it, because all Forsaken weapons have 2 perks. So the second you get, let's say, a 25 RPM cluster bomb rocket in Forsaken with extra perk, it will be better than the Curtain Call, but that will be a very hard roll to probably get. So this will be very good for the first month or so until you get a god roll Forsaken rocket launcher. Obviously you want to keep the tractor cannon, then things like the Kello sniper rifle. So I'm going to go ahead and group the Kello sniper rifle and shotgun together in this little conversation. Both of these weapons will be moving to this slot, your special slot, and they will both be locked to solar. So no matter what element you have on the weapon going into the 28th, it will change to solar no matter what. Obviously, I'm going to keep mine void and just pray. A man can always have hope, but they will be locked to solar damage, and they will also be moved to this slot. For the sniper rifle, that's not too terrible because we have things like Whisper the Worm, then also Darcy, which I don't have on my character. So it's not like the Kello sniper rifle is the best sniper in the game in the first place. It is pretty good with all the buffs on it, but obviously that's going to go out the window. Well, since the Kello shotgun's going to be locked to solar, which means you cannot stack it with tractor cannon, it still will be good on its own because of trench barrel. Trench barrel is 50% buff, and then so is tractor cannon. So let's say you have Zenith of your kind, which is void, and pair it with tractor cannon, then just have a Kello shotgun on solar, which doesn't have tractor cannon. They'll be doing the same damage per second because they both can get a 50% buff. This one through trench barrel, this one through tractor cannon. So the Kello shotgun will still be very good on its own in solo play and all that stuff. But since we can't pair it with tractor cannon, what's the next best shotgun to keep around? Well, most people would say Perfect Paradox, but we learned yesterday in the TWAB that the Perfect Paradox is moving to Kinetic, which isn't terrible. It'll be probably pretty good up in that Kinetic slot, but that's another shotgun with a damage buff that we cannot pair with tractor cannon. So what is your best option? Well, your best option is the Raid one, which has a 7 mag, and I believe 22 reserve, which is the highest out of all the shotguns. Then has threat detector, which is a good perk, and things like that. Then also, which I don't have because I deleted it, the Dead Orbit winning shotgun, the Basilic, I'm pretty sure it's called, is also another good option with an 8 mag full auto. So moving on from the shotguns, we still have the Coil, and things like the Legend of the Acreus. So one thing I want to mention about element types between shotguns, so Perfect Paradox, which I do not have on my character or on my account right now, I need to buy one, will go to Kinetic. Things like the Kello's shotgun will be solar and move to the secondary, and I'm pretty sure Zenith of your kind will follow suit and go to the secondary also. But the Zenith of your kind, you should keep it on void 100%. If you have multiple, keep it on arc and void if you want, but mostly void. Then the Kello shotgun, like I said, is going to be solar. Then you have things like Legend of Acreus, which is arc. So you have 1 of each element for things like strikes and nightfalls. If there's anything I left out in this slot, make sure to tell me, but we're then going to move on to the secondary slot now. Starting off with the EP SMG, I think it's very important to keep at least 1 of these, and I would keep it in void because of the fact You have to remember things like the shotguns and some of the snipers would be moving into the slot, so are you actually going to be using things like an SMG a lot in the slot in PvE? Probably not, and if you do, the most common time I use this weapon is when I'm using Tracker Cannon currently, so I think keeping one in Void is ideal. This SMG is very, very good, but you have to remember it'll be competing with shotguns and Forsaken in this slot. Another weapon that basically has the god roll currently is the inaugural dress. It has outlaw and kill clip on a pulse rifle, and I really think this is basically the best pulse rifle you will ever see in PvE, so this one's very, very important to keep. I will probably keep 2 or 3 of these in different elements because it's basically my go-to medium to long range weapon in PvE currently. I use it over things like the Mananayan and Pleiades corrector. But as mentioned before, it's not going to be one that you're going to go out of your way to get 3 of because you're going to be competing with shotguns in the slot. And more often than not, you're going to have a shotgun equipped anyways, so I wouldn't stress it necessarily. What I would do is take 3 of your favorite scout rifles and pulse rifles, and make sure you have 1 of each element. I haven't decided which one of these 2 to switch yet. They're both on Void currently, but I will change one of these to Arc. That way I have 1 of each element of these like long range type weapons in my secondary slot. And they're all pretty good. But the thing is with these 2 scout rifles, since going into Forsaken, all weapons will have 2 perks. The second you get a scout rifle with explosive payload and another perk with it, it's automatically better. And then same thing with the FWC scout. The second you get a scout rifle with rampage and another perk, no matter what that perk is, it is now better than this weapon. So that's why I'm not stressing having 3 of many weapons, because you will over time replace a lot of them with better versions of them. But things like the Noggle Dress, which already have 2 perks that are basically god rolls, those are the ones I would potentially look into having 3 of them. Another thing I would do similar to these 3 weapons is also with like ARs and SMGs. Basically a lot of the ARs in the game, Positive Outlook is the only one with like a good perk on it, but it's a 450 and 450s in PvE aren't great, they're not terrible. Then there's things like the 720 RPMs, which feel a lot better in PvE, but a lot of them don't have good perks. So both of these weapons basically will have way better versions in Forsaken with random rolls. And then you have things like the Ikelos SMG. Basically what I'm going to do is keep 1 of each and have them on different elements. That way for strikes and whatnot, I have a different gun to use. But like I said, this will easily be replaced over time with a better version of it, something with Rampage or anything like that. Then the Positive Outlook, once we have a 720 RPM with Kill Clip, that's already a better version of that gun. So I want to stress keeping multiple of them. I'm just keeping 1 of each element of this kind of like fast rate of fire secondary. That way I have something to use if I need it. And obviously you have the 3 like go-to exotics and the energy slot, Graviton Lance, Risk Runner, and Sunshot. Obviously hang on to those, which I don't think you can delete because of collections, but you know, but I'll have them with me going into Forsaken. And finally, the Kinetic slot. So one thing mentioned prior is the Perfect Paradox will be in this slot, so we have to keep that in mind. So one thing to talk about this slot before we get too deep is that the meta will probably end up being hand cannon, shotgun, sniper, or something very similar to that. So keeping that in mind, let's break down what you will need in the Kinetic slot going into Forsaken. Obviously, Midnight Coup. If you're on PC, this is a must. It's probably the best hand cannon in Destiny. I think it's better than Fatebringer. A lot of people that know what they're talking about thinks it's better than Fatebringer. But if you're on console or even on PC and you like the Better Devils, obviously hold on to that. So between these 2 weapons, whichever one is your comfort pick, go ahead and keep that one. I'm going to go ahead and keep both, obviously, but I will probably use Midnight Coup for very obvious reasons. And mostly the other weapons I have that are legendary are just really, really good rolled versions of those weapons that will probably be very good until you get a really god roll in Forsaken. For example, the Antiope D has Kill Clip. This SMG is actually kind of insane. But once again, in Forsaken, once you get SMG with Kill Clip and another perk, it's already better. Same thing with Illegal Action 2. It has Rampage, High Cal, which is a very, very good roll as of now. But in Forsaken with extra perk, that goes out the window. Same thing with the Origin Story. It has Rampage, Flirt Magua, which is a very, very good roll. But once again, 2 perks in Forsaken, that'll be out the window. And if you want to use something like a Scout Rifle in your primary, something like the Nameless Midnight or the Trial Scout, which I do not have, are good options. Then lastly, the best gun in Destiny's history, which doesn't get used, the Huckleberry. This gun is absolutely insane, but since it's exotic in the Kinetic slot, and we have things like the Whisper, Tracker Cannon, Coil, Acreus, and all those things, sadly this gun doesn't get used, but you never know when this thing will just emerge as the new meta. In my opinion, it's the best primary in the history of the game, so obviously hold on to that. So the moral of the story is most of these weapons will have better versions of themselves going into Forsaken, but those better versions will be random rolls, so you'll have to get lucky to get them. And that's why bringing these certain guns into Forsaken is very important, because you'll be using them at first, then you will be replacing one at a time as you get a better version of it. It's not like the second Forsaken drops, you will have all the guns with the best rolls. So having like the good version of them, then replace them over time with the great version is probably the way to go. But I think there's a few guns that are already basically as good as they will ever get. Things like the Curtain Call, things like the Noggle Dress, and things like the Midnight Coup. Those are like the 3 main things on this list that are basically the best version they can ever be, and that's why they're very, very important to hang on to. And things like the Noggle Dress and the Curtain Call, getting 3 of them would probably be a good idea. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this list and what things you would add to it or take away. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.